Well, hopefully y'all can see me. Oh, well. Good morning, everybody and family on JJ's PC Builds. This is JJ here once again. I don't have a good opening starting for these live videos, so I'm just doing it raw just like it is, so y'all can see that, it is what it is. But anyway. Alright. I'm going to give it about a couple minutes, let everybody get in so they can get their drinks and they can get their snacks, And I just want to say, see, I lost the thought again. Sometimes that happens. I lose my thoughts and I do apologize for it, but it happens. Okay. I wanted to say welcome to all the new subscribers we got on the channel. Welcome to JJ's PC Builds family. Great to have you here. And all my veteran subscribers, thank you for all the love and support that you've shown us on the channel. Much love to you. And, to let y'all know, as long as if you're watching the videos beginning to end, you're helping support the channel. So if you come on live streams or whatever, you're helping support the channel. So we do appreciate what everybody does. That's the reason why I make these videos, to enlighten the public on what's going on. So, but there was a discussion, and I'm going to just jump right into this little discussion. There was a chat that was going on the, let's see, the comment section on the videos. There was a video that everybody was, a couple people were commenting on, and they said my tests were wrong. So I understand you saying my tests are wrong. Hey, that's your opinion, and I do appreciate you telling me I'm wrong. But the thing is this: I'm going to bring that test up, and I'm going to show you again. But I'm going to narrate it through the whole test. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is bringing that up and narrating through that whole test. So let's go ahead and just get back to the discussion. Let's get back to that video. Your system ran. Well, we definitely found it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pull it up and make it long. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to the action screen. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now I pulled the video up. The video name was let's test the graphics card VRAM and find out together what's going on with it. Well, it didn't say that, but I said it. It's basically the whole test was on the VRAM. It had nothing to do with the random access memory. Okay, number one, I'm going to state this very carefully. I did what they call a backwards test. Okay, I tested the VRAM, which it gave me my results. And for the fact of this, that we're going to fly ahead through the video. If I can get my click on it. Let's see. Okay, we're going to fly ahead through the video and not go through the narration, so y'all aren't bored with the narrated part. Okay, now I pulled it to the point to where it's right here, and we're going to pull it again, and I'm going to take and I'm going to put my mic on standby, and so we can hear what's going on. I'm going to put this up in the screen. Okay, the reason why I pulled this up and stopped the video right here was so that way we can see this very carefully. Okay, now if you look at the test in the beginning, the GPU was only at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not over 23, that's in the 20s Celsius. Okay, now the GPU was at 50%. The graphics card was at 50%, pulling at 2,835 megahertz. That's normal clock. That's not overclocked. That is normal clocked. And I do apologize about this little marker thing that's right here, that subscribe thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and move my face. Let's see. I'll move my face to the other side. We'll get my face to the other side for y'all. Okay. There. Now, so this way y'all don't have my face in there with the little marker thing. I put it right there for you so you can see it. So, a little bit better, but like I said, getting back to the discussion, if you look where it says 2835, now the thing is this, that is baseline, normal operation. It operates at 2835, normal, non-clocked situation. So, it's not overclocked. I did not overclock the graphics card for the simple reason I wanted to just do a baseline test on the VRAM for the graphics card and a baseline test of the system RAM. So this way I can see if I pulled the system RAM to 100%. Now understand, with the system RAM, it does pull the processor down. Okay, now when I pulled the amount of system memory to 100%, but basically I did not in a fashion. Because number one, Heaven Benchmark was already running first, so the instruction set was already set before I even pulled OCCT in. So when I have the instruction set already set for Heaven Benchmark before I started OCCT, that means Heaven Benchmark is still going to run because I'm not utilizing anything else. So what you see in the beginning is basically, when I ran that test, is still running basically the same. And you guys are saying to yourself, why is it the same? What is different? Well, let me make you understand something. Okay? Now, the way OCCT works is that if you got something already running in the background, the foreground, or whatever, all OCCT is doing is adding to it. So basically, if you're already using a set amount of RAM, guess what? All you're doing is adding to the RAM. That's all I did, was add to the RAM to pull it to its max. But I didn't pull it to its max because I set it at 99%. Number one, I did not pull on the instruction set. Okay, now you have to understand there's a couple factors to this. One, I did not bottleneck because, number one, I did not pull from the instruction set. Okay, the instruction set is what sets on your game. So basically it locks you into different instruction sets. But since the memory, I only pulled on the memory alone, that's not pulling on the instruction set at all. It's just pulling on the GPU and CPU, pulling out the memory that it needs to survive. But it did survive because it had that set memory that was already there in the beginning, which was 5,420. Now, let me make you understand something else. Now, the amount of RAM that's there and you see is not being pulled by Heaven Benchmark. Heaven Benchmark is not pulling that. Because if I were to go and pull up the Windows Task Manager, okay, now if I were to look at the performance and I were to look at the memory, okay, this will show me that what I have open now is 5.2 gigabytes. Okay. Now, see, there's a difference. And I'm not running Heaven Benchmark. I'm only running live to YouTube. And I got a window open on DuckDuckGo. That's it. And, I got, antivirus going too. So all that together is equaling to 5.2 gigabytes, which that means with this alone, that means Heaven Benchmark is only pulling approximately 200 to 300 megs of RAM, maybe less. Or maybe more sometimes, but this would be a good discussion, and I'm going to take and find out after I do the live feed. I'm going to find out what Heaven Benchmark is actually pulling in memory, because I have a feeling it's only pulling 300, maximum 400 megs of RAM, system RAM. It's not. The way it looks, that it's the memory it's pulling, it shows that it's pulling 1204, which that's incorrect. Now the graphics card's not pulling 1204 for Heaven Benchmark. You have to take in consideration the other opticals that is going on. Since you're running two monitors, which I'm running two monitors, it's actually pulling a little bit of VRAM for my other monitor, for OBS. So it's pulling a little bit of VRAM for that. You got to think of the optics. Okay. Now I'm trying to make this as clear as I can, but the whole purpose of me pulling on the system RAM again, I know it doesn't sound like it's clear, but I'm trying to make it clear to you. I pulled on the system RAM to pull it down, to pull out 64 gigs of it. Do you actually think that there's any game that's on this market today that can actually pull 64 gigs of RAM away from the system? There is no game that has that amount of power. Number one. So, thinking about if I'm bottlenecking, that's not in the equation here. That's not the purpose of the test. The purpose of the test was to show you, and also for me to test. There's many factors to this. I was testing the heat on the processor, making sure that the heat sink is enough for the processor. If I have to set the PVO curve higher or lower. This is how I balance things. So pulling on the system memory is putting heat onto the processor, but it's not pulling on the instruction set to where it's going to ruin the processor. You get the point now. Okay, so this told me which way to go with the PBO curve. Now I have a negative voltage curve on the graphics. I mean, not the graphics, the CPU and the SoC. So I'm going to show you another program while we're doing this. So this way we get everything clear of what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to ASUS. I'm going to pull AI Suite 3. A little bit of a flash. Do apologize for the flash. Okay. Now I'm going to pull up ASUS AI Suite 3. Okay. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this into the frame. Okay. See this right here? This right here. This is more or less like, you can say, it's not exactly like, what do you call it? An overclocking kind of software. It does help you fine tune your overclocking abilities. Okay. Now, with this, I can set right here the VRMs. This right here is dealing with my VRM. Okay, now I can go over here. I can go over to this one and put a power plan on it if I want. I'm not steering off course yet, so do bear with me. Okay, now this right here, this is for the CPU. I can auto-tune it and have it run on auto-tune or not. Okay. Now, the way I have the BIOS set for right here for the frequency, I have it in the BIOS set on auto. Okay. That's number one. I have the CPU frequency set on auto, so it will run to max. It will run to max without me having to change anything. So basically it'll go to a minimum when I'm not using it and I'm at idle, or it will go to max and then give me the full potential of the processor. So that's the way I have that set up. Now, right here shows you the VDD CR CPU voltage. This voltage and the SoC, the CPU and the SoC, are the two that you really worry about when you're messing in the BIOS. Okay, I got these set at a negative curve. Okay, well actually, yep, they're both set at a negative curve. I got less than, on the SoC, I got less than a watt. Understand this. I got less than a watt. And hello to everybody that just came in. Welcome to the live stream. And I do see you out there, so I just want to say welcome. So, I got the CPU voltage and the SoC set on a negative curve. That's different from the PBO curve. Now don't get it wrong. There's two different curves. You have your voltage curve and you have your PBO curve. Now I set my PBO curve to negative 30. Okay, the PBO curve is set to negative 30. And guess what? I'm still running. I'm streaming and everything else. I undervolted the processor. As you can see, I have absolutely no problem with it. And the Ryzen 7 5700X is a great processor. And that's the one I'm using for my rig. With the Asus RTX 4070 OC. So I'm just going to say I don't have a problem with what I got going on. The only problem I was having, and the reason why I did that test, this right here, I can take and clock. I can use this program here to clock my voltages up and down to see what best work for my processor. I can set the processor ratio, which is the clock speed. I can set it all the way up to the max clock, or I can set it all the way down to the bottom clock, which is set at 3.4 gigahertz. That's the base clock. So if I want to overclock the B clock, I can do that. I can do many things with this program right here. I don't need Ryzen Master. That's nothing but a virus to me. I tried. It took me like several hours of pulling Ryzen Master out of my computer because it was such a nasty program when you go to pull it out. It doesn't let you pull everything out until you get certain, programs to take and pull it completely out of your system, to where it doesn't attach. So if you like Ryzen Master, that's up to you, but I hate it. Okay, the best program I seen that I liked was the AI Suite 3 with Asus. This is Asus motherboard. I like it. Okay, I've always used it, and it's never given me any problem. It tells me everything I need to know. It tells me about the motherboard. It tells me about the CPU. It tells me everything I need to know. It tells me even my fan speeds. So, I got everything cooking with this, and plus it's got a cleaner on it. It's got many different things. But it does not weigh down the system. That's what I like about it the most. It does not weigh down the system. So I can do all my overclocking without having to worry about my system being weighed down. Okay, now coming back to this, going backwards. So we understand about, what kind of RAM Heaven Benchmark actually pulls and not pulls. Okay, so the 5420 means absolutely barely anything because it's not pulling that. It's only pulling 200 to 300 megs. Okay, it's not even under a load with Heaven Benchmark. So you have to understand, I pulled a load onto the processor was for the fact because Heaven Benchmark didn't pull that load. If you were to do Firestrike, if you were to do many of the benchmarking programs, they're going to go ahead and put an instruction load. Hey Caesar, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Now you get to see and hear me live, believe it or not. Instead of you seeing me text in the chats, now you could get a live stream, believe it or not. So welcome, and I'm glad you made it. See, what I'm trying to discuss today is the simple fact that I got a couple comments on the fact of, them saying to me that I'm bottlenecking my processor. Now, if I was bottlenecking my processor, and I'm just going to make this point clear, I would have bottlenecked it with the instruction set. Okay, that's where everybody gets it wrong. They don't know that the only way you can bottleneck your processor from your graphics card is through the instruction sets, not by putting a max load, and not by putting a max load on your memory. That doesn't stretch your instruction sets. Now I'm going to open up HW Info. So we know what instruction sets are. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and pull this right over here so everybody can see what the instruction sets are. Okay, now follow my mouse over here where it says features. These are your instruction sets. Okay, not one of them were set only to heaven benchmark that one of these, either the SS2 or the SS3 or the SSS3 or the SS3, are basically your instruction sets. Now, if I were to take and open up OCCT and pull on that instruction set while doing heaven benchmark, you're going to see a wild difference. Heaven benchmark would have, I would tell you, it would have took and it would have collapsed. It would have stopped running. By me pulling on the instruction sets to 100%, then that would have collapsed the program. Okay? Not pulling on the RAM, because the way the computer works, I only put 99% load onto pulling from the CPU. That does not mean it's 100%. You still got that 1% gap, and since Heaven Benchmark only uses between, let's say the max of between 2 and 500 megabytes of RAM, do you really think that that program was going to actually quit? Me allowing to have only 1 gig of RAM left? Come on. I'm just testing the heat from the RAM to see if it was going to overheat, and I'm testing the processor to see if it's going to overheat, and I'm testing the video card to see if it was going to collapse under pulling all the VRAM out of it. And obviously it didn't do neither. So the program never stopped. The system RAM never collapsed. Windows never collapsed. Heaven Benchmark never collapsed. It still kept running. And I was running that and recording at the same time. Don't you think if I was recording at the same time that it would have messed up OBS Studios? That's my point. It would have messed up OBS Studios. So, it's kind of, you got to think about it, and I know going ahead, we're going to move ahead to it. We're going to keep moving ahead as I'm pulling the instruction set on. Right here, the VRAM. Now I'm getting ready to pull the instruction set on the VRAM. Oh, too far. Oh. Okay, so here I'm pulling the instruction set on the VRAM. Okay, now I pulled that at 100%. The VRAM is different from your system RAM. Two different RAMs. Let's get this straight. 2 different RAMs. Okay, what's on your graphics card is totally different. Totally different from what's on your system, your motherboard. The system RAM is on the motherboard, not the graphics card. So that's where all this little confusion is. One, I did not pull on the instruction set. I pulled on the RAM itself. Manually. You don't need an instruction set to pull on your RAM manually. There is no instruction set. It manually opens up a gate to pull on it, whatever percentage you put it at. So, Now, with having no instruction set added to this mix, do you really think the CPU is bottlenecked? Hell no. Was not even bottlenecked. What are you doing, little one? What are you coming to bother me for? My dog coming to bother me. No, you ain't getting no treats. Go to bed. You already got treats. Quit bugging me. Oh my God. Dog's so bugging me. Oh, she sees the bag and hears it rumble in her brain or something. Oh my goodness. She's lovable. But anyway. Alright, back to what I was discussing. Okay, when you go to benchmark with Firestrike or the rest of them, benchmarks on Steam, they pull GPU instruction sets. They pull CPU instruction sets. And then they pull both sets together to see how much stress it puts on your system and what's the outcome of the performance. All I did is I ran Heaven Benchmark as my instruction set, okay, which has absolutely barely any instruction sets whatsoever to pull on either the GPU, VRAM, or the CPU system RAM. Okay, so keep that in mind. I manually turned on the switch, telling it how much I want to pull away from it with no instruction set. Even though that Heaven Benchmark was still running, that's still the instruction set. So I can still pull more RAM from what actually is running. And that's the reason why it never collapsed, is because of the fact of that the way OCCT works, that if you're running something, okay, and you go to pull from, let's say, the system RAM, it only pulls a certain amount. It doesn't pull 99%. It goes from what you're running and then moves over to the free area. You have free space in your RAM. So what you're not using is considered free. So it pulls the RAM off of that area, not where it's operating at. That would collapse the program. It pulled from the area that was free. So I pulled the maximum amount of the free area, but left 1%. So that way I left at least 1 gig of RAM, system RAM. So basically I pulled it to almost its max, but it still left that instruction set with the amount of RAM it's been pulling with Heaven Benchmark and the instruction set. So basically it's already set. All OCCT does is pull from the free area of that. So it's not pulling from what your system's already pulled out and plus adding more to it. No. It's not pulling from where the program is actually running. It's pulling the free area of where the program is not running. And that's what it's pulling out, where the program's not running. So, to me, to bottleneck my CPU, impossible. On that test was just to test the temperature and to test for artifacting, to test for micro stutters, and to test the RAM for any heating issues, to see if my RAM was overheating, to make sure everything was running in check and order. Had nothing to do with bottlenecking or nothing like that. So I'm going to make that point very clear so that way we all understand what time it is. So my tests are a little bit crude, but I do my testing in my own way. I test it. Every time I test, it tests every little thing, especially when I undervolted the processor in the BIOS. I'm definitely testing the temperature on the processor. I'm definitely testing the hotspot on the processor to make sure that it's not overheating while I'm, putting a max load onto the processor. So, in the matter of the fact of everybody telling me that I'm bottlenecking my processor and this and that, actually, no, I am not. I'm actually testing it to make sure that it holds up no matter what. Make sure it holds up no matter what to the task. Now this is the beginning of where I started pulling on the system RAM. Okay, this right here is where I started to pull on the system RAM. Okay, it was at, look at that, it's at 20 gigabytes. And the processor was only at 151 degrees Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit, not Celsius, Fahrenheit. Well, Caesar, listen, I'm doing everything the hard way, yes. Okay? I'm doing everything manually. Okay? There's some people that got programs that turn around and run it all, and test every little thing that you can think of. I don't have those kind of programs. I do everything manually. So this way I'm nitpicking every little part of what I got on my system. I don't want to pay big money for a system which I know many consumers have paid top dollar for their system, and they want to know how to test it. And every time I come on to YouTube or whatever to look at everybody's testing, the one thing they do is they tell you about it, but they don't show you. They don't show you how to do it. I'm showing you how to do it. Like I said on that video before, you can run this test any way you want to with OCCT. It is a good program. It is really reliable. So, yep, well, it is what it is. When I buy something brand new, I want to make damn sure it's not going to collapse under any pressure. I want to make sure I have great gameplay. And I want to make sure if I'm streaming live, like now, I want to make sure that it's not going to collapse. And, I get kicked off the stream, or I get kicked off game, or whatever. I want to make sure that that's not ever going to happen. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen because I'm not going to allow it. I've been stuck in a situation back years ago to where the motherboard sucks, the processor sucked, the RAM sucked, and you're running off of a hard drive, a regular platter drive, and your computer crashed every 5 seconds. So I had to learn how to change the BIOS, recreate, and get into the BIOS, which were locked BIOSes back then, but they had programs to get around locked BIOSes. So I was able to get around the BIOS and get into it through Windows. And it's just crazy. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to show you guys there's much more to your computer than you think. Okay, now there's a lot of things a lot of people don't do when it comes to computers that they don't show you on the internet because they're afraid, oh, I'm going to be sued and this and that, you know. And it comes to where, you know, people don't think, you know, they just think one thing. They have it one instruction in their mind, and they got blinders on when they do their computers. They think, oh, you need to do it this way, and this is the only way it works. Maybe that works for other reviewers, but there are other reviewers that do things differently. Like me, I do things totally different than other reviewers. You know, I'm not here to blow smoke up people's butts. Just to say, just as an example, and that means I'm not here to tell you a lie. I showed you exactly what I did at the time and how I did it. And I showed you step by step with no problem. And this was one of my videos right here that I showed you step by step what you can do to test your RAM, to test your processor, to test your graphics card, all in one shot. All in one shot. So, and you put it on a 10-minute time limit, and then you run it to see after 10 minutes, if your computer or the program that you're running is going to collapse. Okay? So when you put that instruction onto it and manually tell your computer, hey, you need to do this, like me putting and telling the RAM, hey, you need to give me 100%, regardless of whatever program you're running, it's going to do that. My whole purpose of it was, no matter what, it was not going to affect Heaven Benchmark because I was not using a separate instruction set. Pulling on the RAM is not a separate instruction set. Pulling on the RAM is just a switch. You know, telling the computer how much more RAM you want, and it's just a switch. Nothing else. It's just one switch. So that's exactly what I did. Now, I understand, you know, I value all the opinions that were made on the comment section for this. And I do understand everybody's comment. But when at 20 gigs of RAM, I'm only pulling 25% on the CPU is not bottlenecking. When I pulled 64 gigs of RAM without instruction set, just to let you know that, is not bottlenecking the RAM. Now, when you add an instruction set with pulling that much RAM, then now, yes, you are bottlenecking your GPU with your CPU. So, moving on down the road, just want to make this point really clear. Let's see. Let's get to this. Now, in this instruction set, which is basically Heaven Benchmark, now I pulled 100% of the CPU with no instruction set other than Heaven Benchmark running. Okay, there's a big difference. Now, this right here is only manually pulling the RAM away from the CPU, pulling it up to 100% to tell me what the temperature is right here. So if you noticed that the temperature dropped, not a lot of people look at this until it's pointed out. If you noticed, the temperature dropped. It went from 151 degrees Fahrenheit down to 138 degrees Fahrenheit. It dropped when I pulled all the RAM out. 99% of it, still 1% there. So the temperature did drop pretty drastically. But Heaven Benchmark still ran. And that's the whole point. Heaven Benchmark still ran. Very little minor stutters at 20 FPS. That tells me now the amount of pressure I put on the RAM, which the RAM itself, the temperature of the RAM was only up to 97.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Did not even reach 100 degrees on the RAM. That told me that I got some good RAM. But there's room for improvement. I mean, I could go up to the 3600 megahertz series with CL16, or I can go up and go up to CL18. So, see, when you go up in the CLs, the clock limits, when you go higher in the clock limits, you lose, and not a lot of people know this, you lose speed. You lose speed. You gain frequency, but you lose speed. Staying at a CL14 to a CL18 on a B550 motherboard is fine. You keep the speeds and it runs smooth. That's the reason why I went with the 3200 megahertz of RAM CL16 from Corsair, 64 gigs, was the simple fact that I can manually clock in the BIOS the RAM to 3200 megahertz, and that's its max without overclocking it, and it's running at CL16 on auto, so I don't have to set individual numbers for the RAM and give it its own little clock level. I don't have to do that. The computer did it on its own, so I don't have to do anything like that. All I had to do was set the BIOS, set the memory frequency, and set the Infinity Fabric frequency. That's it. 2 things, it's done. I don't have to go in there and put on DOCP or XMP. That right there, don't do it. It's a joke. XMP and DOCP is a freaking joke. When you use PBO curve on in your BIOS, running DOCP on asus motherboards crashes the motherboard. It really crashes badly the motherboard. See, because it goes back into a loop. So if I were you, I would manually set the frequency and the Infinity Fabric on the memory instead of using DOCP for asus. It sucks, but it is what it is. Now, for the CPU, the voltage, I put it on a negative voltage of a 0.001237, I think it is. I did that for the voltage of the CPU and the voltage of the SoC to undervolt the processor even more, other than the PBO curve undervolting it at a negative 30. So, doing all that, it gave a new light to this processor to bring the heat down and bring the performance up. So that's exactly what it did. It brought the heat down and the performance up. Now understand this. Not a lot of people got a lot of money. Okay? When they go buy a PC, they're usually looking at a cheap Dell out of eBay or something like that for like $100, and then they're going to look at throwing another $100 into it for the graphics card, and maybe throwing another $50 in it for the RAM. Once you add all that up, it can still add you up to a new motherboard. It can still add you up to a new processor. It can still add you up to new RAM. Taking your old motherboard out of your old computer and switching it and getting yourself a better power supply. Or if you already got it, then you're not going to need another power supply. If you got a power supply that's 600 watts or greater, you're not going to need anything more than that. And welcome to everybody that just came in. Welcome to the live view. Okay, so getting back to it. I know this is kind of going off the subject, but these are the Q&As that, people were asking. So, you can get if you already got a great power supply, you already got a great case, you already have enough fan cooling, that's 1, 2, 3. That's 3 parts out of the way. So now if you want to change the motherboard, the processor, and the graphics card, that's another thing. But if you already got the graphics card, you don't need it, so that's -1. So now you got 4 things you minus away from building your new computer. Okay, now you need new RAM, because the RAM you got is small and you want large amount of RAM. I paid $128 for the RAM I got. And that's DDR4, 3200 megahertz CL16. Corsair RAM LPX. Perfect. Runs my system perfectly. I don't have no problem whatsoever. 64 gigs of RAM for $128. Back then, I'll go back about, about 9 months ago. Go back about 9 months ago. I can tell you the RAM, to buy that RAM, is going to be double. Now, it's half the price. The price on RAM is going down. It's because DDR5 is still up there, so the price of DDR4 is staying down. Now, the only reason it would go up is if there's more demand. See, when there's more demand of something, the price goes up. It's just common business practice. So, understand that if there's not a high demand on something, the prices are going to come down. So you watch the item you really want, and when the demand goes down, the prices come down, and then it's the perfect time to buy. Always watch to see what time it is to buy. Now, with me, the only piece I got to do to this computer is get me an AIO cooler, so that way I can take the processor off of the PBO curve, the negative curve, and so I can put the voltage back to normal, so I can run the processor at 100%. The processor is only running at 75%. 25% is not being used because I don't want it to overheat and I don't want to kill the processor. There's a reason why I did the undervolting, was not to kill the processor. So, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You don't want to kill... Now, with transistors, when transistors get hot, they get over 180 degrees, you're killing your transistors. Now, with your processor, you got millions of transistors in there. I mean, millions. You have a lot of transistors in one little processor. So you got millions of them. So that thing's definitely going to get hotter than usual. And you definitely got to keep it cool. The best way to go is get yourself a decent AIO cooler. a water cooler that you know that it's really reliable. You can get them for between 80 and $80 and up. The most expensive ones are going to be the ones that are the 100% reliable ones. And the ones that are really cheap are going to last you about a year to 2 years. You want something to last you longer than that. And this is where everybody gets it wrong. Those AIO coolers, okay, have a water level in them. After a year of heating and cooling, do you not think that half that, 3/4 of that water would have evaporated? I mean, completely evaporated out of the hoses? So you lose water out of the pores of the hose. That's where you lose it. So you lose that little bit. And as you're still heating and cooling, you're noticing the heat of your processor going up and up and up. That's because you're losing water density inside of your radiator. It means you don't have enough water density of the specific chemicals they put in there left. So you got a bunch of junk that's on the pad of the heat plate for your processor. You watch these reviewers, they open up the AIO coolers right there at the pump head, and they show you all this junk and garbage all over the pump head. That's kind of obvious, is because it caked up and it gummed up, and it just got really bad. So if you're going to run an AIO cooler, always make sure that you always take a little bit of jiggle about once every 3 to 6 months, that you take it out of your system, the AIO cooler, shake the radiator to make sure there's enough water in it before you go to put it back into your system. I do that myself if I would have one. But if you don't want the headache of it, then get yourself a decent air cooler that that's going to handle the heat of your processor. Which I got one that's not I got one that's not as big as the one that I got over here in the corner. Okay, so now I'm going to show you all this. Okay, we'll go back to this. Oh, my bad. I forgot to hit the X on that. So, okay. Now, this one right here. 6 heat pipes. 3 and 3. 3 and 3. So it doesn't have 6, it has 12. But it looks like it's got 12, but it only has 6. It only got 3 here, 3 here, and it loops around. It loops around. Here. Hopefully I can show you this so you can see it. Let's see. There it is. This right here, this loops around through the bottom plate and then comes back to the other side. So it's 3 and 3. So you got 3 and 3. Yes, I still got thermal paste on it. I forgot to take it off, but actually I'm testing this thermal paste to see the tackiness and how long it lasts. So, but yeah, 3 and 3, you got 6 heat pipes on this thing. Okay, this right here, this is a monster. Okay, now if I were to use this with 3 92 millimeter fans, 1, 2, and 3. 3 92 millimeter fans. I don't think I would have a lot to worry about, but I've already tried this one. And you know what? since I tried this one and I tried it with this processor, it sucked. It didn't handle it. Because it's doing the same thing as the one I got right here. Now in the computer. So it's going to take me a little time to find the right air cooler if I'm going to do air or if I'm going to do AIO. I want to try AIO for the simple fact is that it looked more interesting. But the bad caveat of it all is that over time, it's going to wear out and you're going to lose all the density of the cooling and you're stuck back at square one. So that leaves me with another decision. Should I get an AIO cooler or should I get a better, beefier air cooler? Y'all decide and let me know which one you think I should get. An AIO cooler or an air cooler? Which one would cost you, probably cost you more, but in the long run would cost you less? You gotta look at the long run. Don't look at the right now. Look at how long you're going to have it for. And look at how long it's going to last. That's what you need to look at. That's what I try to teach everybody when I bought the RTX 4070. It's not, when you buy it in the beginning, how much it costs. It's in the long run, how long you're going to use it for and how long is it going to last. So, like again, it's like if you got a 5-year warranty on a graphics card and it cost you $600, which this one did, and then you take and turn around. Measure it between 5 years. So you divide the total cost by 5 years, and you know that this graphics card is going to last me 5 years. So it's $120 a year for 5 years. So every year it costs me $120. Now, if you divide that by the usage, you divide the usage by the performance. Usage to performance. Then you'll see how much your graphics card is actually worth. Or how much you're saving on your graphics card. Now, I'm going to tell you, if it's costing me 3 cents a day to have this graphics card here for the next 5 years, which it is, only 3 cents. When it comes down to it, now per year, or let's say per month, it's costing me less than $3 per month. If I figured it out right. Hopefully I did. If I didn't, I apologize for that. But okay, so for 5 years, everybody's like, well, you had that graphics card for 5 years? That's a dinosaur. Okay, yes it is. But look at the 30 series, the nvidia 30 series right now. Don't you think that with it being between 3 to 4 to 5 years old already, that it's not a dinosaur? Now, me buying a graphics card that's only less than a month old, 2 weeks to be precise when I purchased this graphics card. From the time it was made till the time I got it is only 2 weeks. So, now I'm using it for 5 years from that start date. I'm getting everything but 2 weeks of usage from that graphics card. 2 weeks, and that's it. So, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer, you know. And then you got everybody running for the 4060 Ti, you know. They're going to get the 16 gigabyte version. Guess what? That's more or less paying $100 less than you're paying for this one. You know, I'm just making another point so that way everybody can understand the reason why I purchased the stuff I did was for the longevity of it. That I learned, excuse me, I learned a long time ago, if you're going to build a system, build it one time and one time only. Don't waste your time building it over and over and over again. Don't waste your time. Build it one time and make it last for 5 years. So every 5 years, you build it one time. One time. Pick the best parts you can. Now, that means it goes up 3 generations. Once every 5 years, you go up 3 generations. So in that 3 generations that you go up, guess what happens? Now you got 3 generations worth of new parts to pick from. And now that the price came down for those 3 generations, you're up to the 4th generation, which is coming out. So that means you got 3 full generations of discounted parts. So even though that your computer can be a year behind, 1 year behind, not 2, just 1 year, you can pick the best of the best parts and still play the best games in the world. Okay, you can still have the best, but not pay the price. Not where everybody's fighting to get the price, and like they're trying to fight for the price to performance. I'm not fighting for the price to performance. I'm fighting for the usage to performance, not the price. Okay, the usage to performance is different from the price to performance. If I'm going to use this graphics card or this motherboard or whatever for 5 years, 5 years, you're going to get your money's worth. Okay, regardless if it sucks or not. And I know for the 40 series card and the mid-range card I got, it's not going to suck. Now, I know for the processor I got for this computer is right there in the middle of the DDR4 series, the AM4 series. To me, I feel it's in the middle. So, it's one processor that people don't talk about. They either talk about the 5800, the 5800X3D, or they're talking about the 5900 or 5900X, or 5950X, or whatever, or they're talking about the 5500, or the 5600X, or the 5600, but they don't talk about the 5700X. You rarely hear people talk about it. When I bought the processor, it was at $160 some. It was on a good sale. Now the processor's almost up to $200. Why? Because it's the matter of demand. Now that people see that the 5700X is becoming more valuable, there's more demand on for that processor. So I bought it at a great price where it was low. The motherboard, the same thing. You know, the B550 Strix from Asus, B550A. Now, there's not a lot of demand for that motherboard. So, I got the motherboard for the same price that I got the Tough Gaming board for. If I were to buy the Asus Tough Gaming with Wi-Fi motherboard, it's the same price, $169. The same as the one I got for my PC. I got 2 of the same motherboards. But when I bought that 5800X3D, the motherboard was only $100. So I saved $69, say $70. So saving that $70 on that motherboard, and also too getting $40 worth of RAM, that's $110 I saved by buying that combination for $329 from Micro Center. It's only exclusive from Micro Center, if you're wondering. So if you buy that from Micro Center, it's that. Okay, so understand that. If you're going to go and buy the $229 processor with the $100 motherboard, which the motherboard's not a $100 motherboard, the motherboard's actually $170, and the RAM's $40. So when you're buying both, you're buying what you get. Now, the combinations they put together were not bad combinations. The amount 16 gigs of RAM and the B550 motherboard that comes along with the 5600 X3D, not a bad combination. Just keep that in mind. Not a bad combination. Only thing you got to add to that is graphics card, power supply, a case, fans, a heat sink for the processor. And welcome back once again, everybody that came in the door, just to say. What, puppy? What are you bugging me for? No, you ain't getting no treats. Go to bed. I don't know why you keep bugging me. Go to bed. No, you're not getting nothing. No, you're not getting up my arms. No, you're not getting up here neither. You just want to be a spectator. That's all you're doing over there. Go spectate over there. Go. No. Go spectate over there. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I gotta pick with my dog sometimes. My dog gets crazy sometimes. Okay, now, getting back to the action screen. We're gonna go back to it again. Now you see that at 64 gigs of RAM, yes, it pulls the, there. Yes, it does pull the processor to 100%. But you see the clocks. Now, this is what I'm going to make y'all understand. 4525 is not the absolute high clock for this processor. 4650 is the absolute high clock for this processor. I know it because I clocked it at that. So, being at 100% with 38 degrees Fahrenheit, don't get that mix between Celsius and Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit is more or less a U.S. term when it comes to temperatures, but, when it comes to Celsius, it's more or less like a European term. Okay, here in the United States, we use Fahrenheit, is because it's digitally more precise than Celsius is. Celsius gives you like a ballpark average of what it really is, but it doesn't give you the precise clock to the actual degree of temperature. Now, I've been cooking many years, and we all use Fahrenheit here, so I do apologize if we're not using Celsius, but we're not using Celsius. I seen you left and you came back in, Caesar. I seen it. I seen you went back and came back in. But the whole point of this is this. Yes, I pulled the processor down to I pulled it down to like almost close to zero RAM. There was still 1 gig left. I wanted to make sure that my RAM was going to hold up. I was going to make sure that the processor was going to hold up under heat extremities, because if I'm under a heavy gameplay, last thing I'm going to be worried about is the frickin' temperature on my processor. And with your graphics card, when it comes to gameplay, you control your graphics card in the game. You can control it and reset it any way you want, but not your processor. Understand that. You cannot individually set your processor like you do your graphics card. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. Let me know. I can tell you I'm right because you can't. They only have, for every game that you play, they only have for the graphics card only. You don't see anything with presets or anything else for the CPU, the processor, the CPU processor, the system processor. You don't see nothing in there. So that's what it comes down to. You can't control your processor, but you can control your GPU. But what I'm doing here is this test is controlling the GPU and I can control the processor at the same time. Well, not at the same. Well, I could probably do it at the same time, but I would end up having to crash the whole computer doing it. That's why I did it individually instead of doing both at the same time, doing one and another. So do understand that. You don't want to do both at the same time. You will crash your computer. Whole purpose in my testing is to see separately the graphics card, what it does, separately what the CPU does, and I seen what I needed to see, and it wasn't bottlenecked. I don't know why everybody says, oh, I bottlenecked it. No, I did not. There was no instruction set that I give it to bottleneck it. Without the instruction set, you cannot bottleneck it. I don't care how good of a technician you are, they're going to tell you the same damn thing. Without the instruction set, you're not bottlenecking your processor. You took the bottleneck right out of the equation. Only thing that you're telling the CPU to do is give me more memory. That's the only manual instruction set you put on a switch, and you put how much you want, and you just taken that. There is no instruction set. The only instruction set that was running was from Heaven Benchmark. And that's the reason why it still kept running, because I didn't pull an instruction set. Now, if I were to pull the instruction set, then yeah, I could have bottlenecked the processor by pulling the instruction set to 100%, which is going to pull the RAM up to at least maybe a quarter to half. Yeah, it's gonna bottleneck the bottleneck the graphics card. But pulling the RAM away from the CPU, the only thing it's going to do is pull the amount away from the GPU. It's basically the GPU is just crawling. It's working, but it's just crawling at that point. It's basically, it went on standby. It still operates, but it went on standby. As long as most of the source was going to the CPU, the GPU was just crawling. But the stuttering was very, very minute. Very minute at that amount of FPS. Very minute. And you can see that the GPU was crawling, but the CPU was only doing 100% of giving me memory and no instruction set. The only instruction set that was going is the Heaven Benchmark and the Windows program itself. Nothing else. I forgot to throw that in. Windows has an instruction set. So basically, welcome back once again. So Windows has an instruction set, and so does Heaven Benchmark. Okay, so you got two that have an instruction set. I'm running both. Okay, but when I pulled the RAM away, I pull it like this, and pull it all the way down to 1%. 1% of system RAM. Guess what's going to happen? Exactly the same result. But I pulled no instruction set, only the RAM. And pulling the RAM is not an instruction set. It's a manual switch. That's all it is. I manually switched and pulled the RAM away. It had nothing to do with the instruction set. So, if you're going to bottleneck your CPU, you're going to do it by the instruction set of playing the game. So, if you think my test is false, then go play your game and take OCCT and pull the RAM all the way down to 1% and see how your game plays. And if it gives you the same results, guess what? It is what it is. So that tells you that, you got a great processor if it can handle the amount of pull from the memory. Simple as that. If your processor can't handle the amount of pull from the memory and it crashes, then you got a problem with your processor. I don't have a problem. Just to let you know that. That's why I do the testing I do. Okay? I do it right here on YouTube for you all to see. I don't hide my testing. I don't need to give you numbers. Okay? I don't need to give you numbers. If you want to see a test, and I'm going to break this down. You want to see a live test, I can do a live test. Okay? It's not hard. So, if I wanted to do a live test, all I do is I move things around to where I can see it. Let's say if I wanted to do the Heaven Benchmark test again. Okay. Now, I'm going to take and turn off all the anti-aliasing. I'm going to leave it on Ultra, and I'm running DirectX 11, and the resolution's at 800 by 600. Okay, so now, I have to cut the sound off so that way YouTube don't get a butthole here. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen, everybody. Oh my goodness. Okay, now we're back to the right screen. Okay, now, let me pull myself all the way over here. Okay, now I'm running Heaven Benchmark. Let me hit F11. Oh, that's not good. Well, that's not good. Let's see if I can do this backwards. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, well, we'll do it a different way then. Okay, so we'll do this a different way. My apologies. Some reason it's just working backwards today. Okay, now let me go ahead and pull this over. This will tell you the temperature of the core and everything else, so that way you can see every little thing. So this way it gives you a good idea of what I'm doing. Okay, so now you'll see the wattage and everything else that's right here. This will tell you the wattage and everything else. You know, the megahertz and wattage of your processor. This will tell you right here where the voltage is and the temperature of the CPU with the temperature of the motherboard, the CPU package and everything. Okay, now, Heaven benchmark. Oh, let's see. Now let's see if I can get this to work right. There we go. Okay, so now you can see that the GPU's running at 104, 106. Memory's only 1.2, 1.3 gigs. CPU's only at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse me. And I'm running the RAM at 6190. Okay, now we're going to take our calculator out. Since I did this earlier, we're going to recalculate this. We're going to say 6227 minus 5200. Okay, so it looks like Heaven Benchmark's only pulling 1027 megabytes of RAM. How I calculated it was because before I started the test of everything running, I wanted to see what was up. Oh, this program here, this is Heaven Benchmark. This is Heaven Benchmark, if you're wondering. I'll go ahead and I'll bring up really quick what it is. That's this one right here. So, it's this one right here, Heaven Benchmark by Unigen. You know, Unigen right here. You know, you can go to unigen.com and or type in Heaven Benchmark, and that you can go to let's see. Let's see if I can bring it up really quick for you. Okay, we'll hit this at. Okay, so you type in Heaven Benchmark. Okay, so right here, Heaven Benchmark at Unigen. So you click on that and pull this right up here. You can take and if you're running Windows, you can download it for free. So it costs absolutely nothing to get that. Or if you want and you want the different benchmarks. Now there's four different benchmarks here. So you can get Superposition, where you see everybody using that, Valley, the Heaven, the Tropics, and Sanctuary. So this is where you get all those extra benchmarks, if you're wondering. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, everything is here. Now, if you're looking for OCCT, you go to OCCT. You just type in OCCT, and right here it's Ocbase. You go right here, and you go to OCCT right here, and you download it. Simple. So you can get that right here as well. It's a good stability test. You know, I use it. It helps me balance out my processor, my graphics card, my RAM, everything. So you can get it right there. OCCT. See, it says Octane OCT or ocbase.com. So you can get it from there. It's perfect if you want to do that. So, but yeah. Now, if you want to, you're welcome. You're welcome. If you want to, let's say you're trying to test your system. Okay. Now, this is HW Info. Now, you can get HW Info for when you want to test your voltages and everything else about your processor or your GPU, because you can go right over here to your GPU and you can see everything about your GPU that's going on right now. The frame rate, the amount of voltage, the RPM of the fans. You can see everything on HW Info. You can get that hwinfo.com. So always remember, you can get, anything you want. But this is really good to tell you the temperatures. And this is tell you the voltages, the temperatures. Right now, it's telling me that my processor is at 52.4 Celsius. Okay. That's how hot my processor is right now, because I have all this open. Okay, so once I close it, it's a different story. But yeah, if you want to check your temperatures and everything else, all you do is you go to your Google. You go to your Google, type in HWINFO, okay, and then go to www.hwinfo.com. Brings you up to this screen. Now this is HW Info screen, so this is free to download. Programs I'm giving you are free to download, so they're no secret. All reviewers use these for benchmarking and everything else. So that it's no secret. So that's just how you get there, just to let you know. So that gives you a good idea of what you're dealing with. So I'm still running Heaven Benchmark. Yes, you can see that the FPS has dropped. But the last time I did the test, the Heaven Benchmark test, I was at, the PBO curve was set at -20. Now I updated it. I set the PBO at -30, so that way it kind of suppresses a little bit of the FPS and the heat for the processor. If you noticed, there's no micro stuttering whatsoever on Heaven Benchmark. It's running smooth. I mean, very smooth. I can't see where everybody says to me, well, when I pull it down to, when I pull down all the RAM and bottlenecks and everything else, you know what? I do my test my certain way is because I know it works. I don't need to, look at this and look at 5 million different things just to get the answer for one thing. But I get the answer for 5 things instead of 1. I get it for 5. 5. Well, that's 4. That's 5. So that's what I look at. When I do my test, I get more than one answer for a lot of equations. So it told me that I have the right PBO curve in the bias. It told me I have the right voltages. because the game didn't crash under max load of the RAM, Trick 22. Because if you know, with older systems, long time ago, under Windows 7 or below, no, it wasn't Windows 7. It was either Windows Vista or below. That what would happen is that when you pull out the max RAM, the whole system would crash. It would just completely crash. But now with the new UEFI system, it doesn't seem to want to crash anymore. So, you know, it's kind of got a little bit of a bump to it. And that's the good thing. You know, at least I know I can pull the max amount of RAM and not crash my system. So if I'm playing a game and it pulls the maximum amount of RAM, it's not going to crash my system. That's the point. There's some games that take and pull lots of CPU, and when it means lots of CPU, it pulls a lot of RAM with instruction set. That's the difference. I pulled the RAM down without instruction set, so it's not going to crash it. It's going to keep running just like you see right here and now. Right here and now, the way it's running. It's going to be running that same way unless I pull from the CPU side, which is the system RAM. It's going to take and pull. Now get this. If I go and I put OCCT on, it's going to pull away from the system. Here we go again. We're going to do this again. So this way everybody sees there's nothing wrong with my testing. Nothing. Nothing at all. Okay. Now, when I pull with this, okay, I'm going to leave that right there and that right there. So you can see having benchmark running and everything else. This is at 99%. 99%. Now, I'm live streaming. I'm live streaming to YouTube right now. So now, I'm going to click 99% of the memory. Now, you would think this would crash. It should. But we're going to see if it does. Let it count down. You'll see yourself. And here we go. Now when it hits 60 gigabytes is when it starts dropping. Now when it hits 60 gigabytes of system RAM, that's when it starts dropping down. That's when it started dropping down the amount of FPS. Now I pulled it down. Now I'm watching OBS. It's kind of pulling OBS kind of a little bit wonky. But you're seeing what it's actually doing on my PC. It's not actually being so wonky, it's still running. Because as long as we look at it here, look. See right here? Heaven Benchmark is still running. And look at the CPU now. It's 23, 24 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, the system's controlling exactly what I wanted it to do. It's not pulling it at 64 gigs of RAM. It's only pulling 63, almost 64 gigs. So basically the system is now compensating for the memory loss. You can see little stutters here and there. Now the stuttering will stop. The stuttering will stop when I hit stop. Okay. Now do you see the difference? See, now the stuttering stopped. The stuttering stopped. Watch this. The stuttering stopped. See, no difference. The stuttering stopped when I turned off OCCT. So you can see now the RAM is pulling at 4,719.20, somewhere in there. And now look at the GPU temperature is now going up because now I'm pulling less from the RAM, so the temperature starts to rise a little bit, not much. So temperature changes not so bad when you're pulling 100%, but understand what I'm telling you. It did not crash. It did not crash. So that means I'm only at 44 degrees Celsius on the processor. 44 degrees right here. Right here. It says 44 degrees. I'll pull this a little bit closer to you. Temperature right here. 44 degrees Celsius on the CPU. Motherboard is only at 31 degrees. Now the CPU package, that means the T package, is only at 55 degrees C. Now the chipset is only at 39 degrees. Fans are still running at 2265. Now understand this. The fans are running at maximum. You hear my system or don't you? The only fan you're hearing is the big fan that I got over here that's running. You don't even hear all the 9 fans that are running at maximum right now in my system. They're all running at max. All 9 of them. And that includes A to Z, except for the graphics card. I might as well say 7 fans and 2 fans for the graphics card. 2 fans for the graphics card, they're running at approximately, and this is what I can see, they are running at approximately 81%. 83%. So there it is. Right down here. Fans are running at 83%. So they're not running fast. I mean, you can't beat that with the chicken wing there, Junior. So if you want to see it bigger, we'll make it bigger for you. We'll go ahead and we'll open up GPU-Z. I'm making sure I get everything correct. So this way everybody knows that there's nothing phony about this damn test. That this is actual true. Okay, now we're going to bring it over to you right here. Fans are only running at 2,500. 2,500, 2,600 to be on an average. Well, be on an average, say about 2,550. Okay. So the fans are only running at 2,550 at 78%. Under load, they're running at 84%, probably 2,700 on both fans. Each fan running at 2,700. So, running the test, the board draw power is only 98 watts. The GPU chip power draw is only 66, 67. The MVDDC power draw is only 16. I mean, the PCIe, the 8-pin power plug, right here, 40 watts. Now the slot power means the PCIe X16 slot that where the graphics card plugs in at. That thing's only running at 26 watts. So, and I'm still running Heaven Benchmark. There it is. I'm still running Heaven Benchmark. Has not stopped this whole time. When I started the test, has not stopped. Okay. Now, I'll put that down there so I can see that. Now, I'm just making this point very clear. Okay. Now, if I was running a crappy processor and a crappy graphics card and everything else, guess what would happen? System would keep crashing. Let me pull you guys up to the main screen now. Okay. The thing is this, I would keep on crashing. I would still have problems. And, everything wouldn't be in balance. So, by me doing all these little tests, make sure this tells me that the processor's in balance with the RAM. That tells me that the processor's in balance with the graphics card. That's telling me the processor's in balance with the solid state drive, SSD. And it's in balance with my mechanical hard drive, which is 14 terabytes. Now my solid state drive is 1 terabyte, but I got 14 terabytes of hard drive space. So I got a total of 15 terabytes to do content creating and gaming. I had somebody else the other day told me, "Well, don't put your Steam games on your mechanical drive. They'll run too slow." That's crap. I got all my Steam games loaded and saved on my mechanical drive. So, and the speed has not changed. There's no difference between my solid state and that drive. A solid state drive and a regular hard drive, it doesn't show me a difference. It might show a difference to some people, but the way I got my system set up, it doesn't show me any difference. So, just to say, and hello everybody that walked into the door, welcome to the live stream. I haven't done a live stream in a while. I figure I'd do one now. And if you want to catch up, don't forget to go back to the beginning. Then you can hear me all the way out to right now. Or you can take and start right now and then go all the way to the end with us. And then later, review the beginning. That's up to you. So that just gives you a little bit of heads up. So when somebody tells you, "Oh, you're bottlenecking," when somebody tells you you're doing your own test on your own system, and they're telling you, "Oh, you're bottlenecking with that test and everything else," in whose eyes? Look at it that way. In whose eyes? Whose eyes am I doing bottleneck testing with my computer? My computer, I'm not bottlenecking my own test. Why would I do that? So, if you're coming in and you don't understand what I'm talking about, in the beginning I did a series of testing, and right now I'm doing one test that I'm still running, that I'm proving that my processor is not bottlenecking. Okay, they think I bottlenecked my processor, which I did not. So going back to the action screen, it's still running. It's still running, and I'm live streaming, so this is telling me that I got a good processor, I got a good graphics card. It's money well spent. And I hate to tell you that. People say that, the RTX 4070 is a crap card. Don't spend it. Okay, well, let me put this into another light. I had this pointed out to me. Okay, the RTX 4070 is the same die as the 4070 Ti. Trick. The 4070 and the 4070 Ti are almost close to similar in most of the things that, with its functions, except for the amount of cores. So, that's the difference, is the amount of cores. But most of the functioning, about 70% of the functioning on the 4070 does the same thing on the 4070 Ti. So this tells you another thing, the reason why I bought the 4070. Because it's, number one, it might be a little less cores, but it's $200, maybe $300 cheaper than buying a 4070 Ti. When it's giving you close to that 4070 Ti feel, which it does for me. I mean, for me, I ran close to 8 to 9 months. I ran on integrated graphics. So bottleneck. I got a soda and break the battle and keep the neck. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much, don't break the bottle. Don't break the bottle. It's best to just open it up slowly and let it just breathe. Okay, it's basically when you do a bottleneck test on a processor, is you're opening it up to breathe. Okay, some people believe that when you bottleneck something, that it's going to actually when you bottleneck when you bottleneck your processor, it happens in the beginning, not at the end, not in the middle. Because that's when your fine-tuning is in the middle and at the end. At the beginning, where it all starts. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. If you're going to bottleneck something, it's going to be in the beginning. It's going to be on your tuning for your processor to your GPU. The tuning. So if you already got it tuned and you tuned it into the center and it comes into where it's not bottlenecking anymore, that's after the fact you first start the test, then you know where the problem is. But you can't tell somebody, you're bottlenecking after the fact of it running good the first time. I'm running the same test. Okay? This is the same test as I run on that other video that I made. It's the same damn test. Okay? But it's not bottlenecking. If you look at it and you see Heaven Benchmark right here, look at the milliseconds. Okay? If I was bottlenecking, the milliseconds would be a lot higher than this. That's another trick. If you see the milliseconds right here, and the reason why I got the milliseconds there instead of getting the lows is because I want to see millisecond wise. I mean, that's very fast. That means like instantly, almost instantly. You want to see what it's doing almost instantly. Piece by piece, second by second. Milliseconds. You want to see if it's going to change. If it's going to go too high on the processor, it stays down low. You want to know where it's staying at. If I keep it in between 1 and 3%, between 1 and 3 milliseconds, all the way through from beginning to end, if I keep it between 1 and 3 milliseconds, I'm doing great. But if it goes up to 20 to 40 to 60 and almost 100 milliseconds, then yeah, that's where the bottlenecking comes in. Okay. That's where you start seeing bottlenecking when it gets up to like 50 to 100 milliseconds. That's when you see the processor bottlenecking. Okay. So, since I don't see it bottlenecking anytime soon or in the future, I don't see where the problem is. Okay. Now, for me taking and turning on OCCT and pulling the RAM out of the equation, well, that comes back to the same point. Is OCT, when I do that, is it pulling, and I can turn it on again. We'll turn it on again. So, you'll see. We'll get this right down to the nitty gritty. Okay, now with OCCT and with the system memory, and I pull it at 99%, is it throwing latency, too much latency to cause a bottlenecking? Now, that's going to be a question to see if we can answer if it's going to bottleneck this or not. Where this turns into a problem. So let's see if it's a problem. Let's watch right here. Let's see. Let's see what happens right here. This is where you want to see it. And the latency. Now, looking at this latency, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I'm only seeing 60 milliseconds, but I haven't seen anything above 60 milliseconds. Let's see if we see anything above 60 milliseconds. Even though that the test will probably run for, right now it's only ran 47 seconds. So let's see if it's going to give any bottlenecking issues that we really need to worry about. So there's no game in this world that's going to pull 100% of your RAM. Okay, system RAM, there's not a game that's on the market that will pull 64 gigs of RAM. So this is one thing you don't have to worry about, just to tell you. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, now, like I said, the latency is still staying low. So, this is telling me that it's staying in between 30 and 60 milliseconds. At the max, 60 milliseconds. Okay, but now I can see that this is not a problem. Okay, looking at the charts right here, the GPU load is only at 10. So that means the memory controller, and this is where it's, the memory controller was non-existent. So basically, pulling the memory to 100% was 99%. The memory controller was non-existent. That means it was basically in standby mode, almost. So, but it didn't affect the bus. Nope, didn't affect the bus interface. Didn't affect the memory controller too bad. The GPU load, it affected the GPU load. And those little spots that you see in between here, that's when I put the load on the CPU, cutting the amount of core, or not cutting the amount of core, cutting the amount of memory down to almost zero. That's what you see these little spots for. This is what your your system RAM of your computer does. Okay. Now the system memory used fills in that blank. You see that and see that right there? That's what fills in that blank. All that blankage right there. Your board power goes down. Your GPU's chip power goes down. You know, your SRC power draw goes down. Your voltage stays normal. Your PCI slot voltage stays normal. Your 8-pin voltage stays the same. You know, it's kind of obvious. Okay. So all I did was I took the memory out of the equation. Almost 100% of the memory out of the equation. So that's what people don't understand. Why did I take and pull the memory out of the equation? Almost 100% of it. Well, because that way, you know, your GPU sits in standby. So it's not the one that's creating a problem. Your CPU goes to 100% with no instructions. Basically, it's just running at 100% to see how hot it'll get. And simple as that. That's it. It's just testing your RAM to see how hot it'll get, and testing your CPU for temperature. And it puts your GPU on standby, and simple. There is no bottlenecking. Because if my computer was bottlenecking, I would see it right here in the amount of latency from the milliseconds. It would show me the latency. It would show me how much it's bottlenecking. But as far as I can see, it's operating normally. So, you know, with every scene has a different milliseconds. Okay? That's by the texture framing. That's by the texture framing. So basically it's using the VRAM. The VRAM for the texture framing. The texture manipulation's done by your VRAM. Not your system RAM. The VRAM controls the texture manipulation. Now, where everybody sees that there's a little bit of a boost when you use DLSS 3, well, that's because it's in combination with your CPU and your GPU. It's like a little bridge between the two. So it bridges a little bit of your CPU and your GPU together, giving it one big boost. Check it out yourself. If you don't believe me, check on your own stuff. See if it works for you. If it works for you, then, you know, you got something good. But if it doesn't work for you, then obviously you got some things you need to work on. You know, me, when I was picking these parts, I picked these parts very carefully. Nobody picked the parts for my PC. I picked them and did my own homework and did my own notes to find out what the best of the best was for the motherboards. And I always say this, start with the motherboard. You know, if you want a low-cost computer, then go B450. You want a medium, like an intermediate, like kind of computer, you know, to where it's like mid-level computer, then you want a B550. You want something that's high level, or, you know, that's high value, then you're going to want to go to AM5 series or higher, because those are top level motherboards that where you start. And then after that, you know that if you get like anything in the 600 series, the 700, basically in the 700 series, it's going to be top shelf. So you know you're going to be spending more for those kind of motherboards. So if you're running the like the 7, this was it a 7950X, you know you're going to need a 700 series motherboard. Simple as that. If you're going to run a non-X, then you know you could probably get away with it on the older 600 series. I think it's 600 series, if I remember right. So you can go on like I think it's a 620 motherboard, something like that, or something in between there. Something that's low budget. You know, a non-X chip, you can get away with doing that. And that means you don't have to go into the BIOS and do all the shenanigans that you have to do with an enthusiast motherboard. So basically you can go in there and you can set everything on turbo or on whatever speed or whatever you want, and then just, you know, let the computer decide for you of how fast that your computer needs to run for you to become more, for your computer to become more efficient and to have a happy place. And welcome everybody that just came in the door. I say the door because, you know, basically it is like a door, you know, coming in. But anyway, welcome to the live stream. So, and if you haven't caught up just yet, then, you know, you can always go back and later and review where I started with at the beginning to now, or you can take and, you know, continue with us to the end of the video or the end of the live stream, and then go back later and watch the beginning so you get a better understanding of what's going on. But if this is your first time here, just subscribe. That's all you got to do, is just go ahead and subscribe. You can get into the chat with everybody. The chat is open for everybody to get their, you know, to get their voice heard. You know, I never restrict anybody, but all I ask you is if you want to get into the discussion, just subscribe. That's all you got to do. Cost absolutely nothing to subscribe. It is absolutely free to subscribe. I'm not like everybody else charging everybody to get you to subscribe. No. Just subscribe. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything, and it helps us here grow. And the more we get subscribed, the better we're going to be. Just to say. And that's my advertisement for the day, okay? But like I keep saying, if you want a stability test to find out if your computer's running fast enough, yeah, well, you know that's not going to happen. Now I'm not going to bring politics in here, but not when they're trying to take away your cars and tell you to run on an all-electric car and they don't pay you for it. That's the difference. They don't pay you for your cars. Like, that's never going to happen, so I'm not even going to worry about it in my lifetime, to where they take away my gasoline car just to give me they ain't going to give nobody free electric cars. That's just a simple head put. And they're not going to take away gas anytime soon, so that's all a bunch of crap again. So, just saying, you know, it's my opinion, just to let you know. But anyway. But, I'm just trying to tell you, the tests that I do are simple tests. Simple programs. Easy to set up and easy to test your PC. Now, if you think, oh, you do, huh? You think they got a tablet? I think they're whitewashing them or bleach washing them like Hillary Clinton does. But anyway, no politics, everybody. No politics here. Let's keep it PC politics. You know, no outside of the world politics. I got to remember to hold my tongue on that, because when we come in here, I just want it to be like the inner boob of PC world. So basically, all the outside distractions can stay outside. We got enough in this world. We don't need any of that extra outside distractions. You know, we come here to relax. We come here to talk. We come here to make our points of what we like about our PCs. If there's something wrong with them, no, don't, Caesar, listen. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. The only reason I say real world politics are not being brought in here is because somebody brought in one time. They brought in real world politics, and you know that wasn't the discussion that was going on. Okay, I know there's real world problems, but when we come in and do live streaming, this is like a different world. This is like we're enjoying what we're doing here. You know, instead of worrying about all the problems that are going on around us, we like having fun here talking about how our PC is running, what we can do to make it better, and so on. You know, it doesn't involve. I know you. Look, hey, it's no sweat and no worries. It's fine. You know, it's fine. But, like I said, I mean, even though that I have, my complaints about nvidia and about AMD and about Intel and about asus, and Gigabyte, MSI, when I have problems with these companies and what they do, that's where my politics come in. Is basically, I tell you the politics that are going on. It's like right now, how many of y'all, and I'm going to ask you this, how many of you all are going to go get the RTX 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes? Anyone that's here right now, are you going to pay the $500 for it? Seriously, are you going to go and pay the $500 for it? Ask yourself that question. Would you pay $500? Would you pay $500 for something that gives you absolutely no performance whatsoever? I had to move myself out of the way because that little subscribe little thing. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, all you got to do is hit that little thing that says subscribe. It's right there in the bottom right. So, I just let you know the give you get all your info, but not. Oh, I understand that. I mean, look, I have no secrets when it comes to what I do with PCs. I have no secrets. So basically, if I'm giving info to somebody and they're asking me what they can do to make their PC better, I'm basically giving the info of letting you know what you can do to make it better. But it's not up to me to tell somebody how to do something, but it's to suggest. I would suggest, if they want to make it better, then they can always start at the beginning. And I always tell everybody at the beginning, you start at the motherboard. Okay? What potential, do your homework on the motherboard itself and see what kind of processors will fall in line with that motherboard. Okay? It's not where you start with the processor, it's where you start with your motherboard to find out what processors it will use. Now, if your motherboard uses multiple processors, I'm trying to, Caesar. I'm really trying to. It's rough, but, somebody got to do it, right? So, but anytime, and I'll make that point to you, anytime you're looking to start to build a PC, okay, anytime you're looking to build a PC, first start with the motherboard, okay? That's going to tell you what you can do and not do, okay? Tells you what kind of processors you can use or not use. There's many motherboards out there, so there's many to choose from, okay? If you want to do the Intel series, there's motherboards for Intel. There's motherboards for AMD. Those are your two main companies that make processors for motherboards. Okay. Now, there's not really any companies other than Intel and AMD for processors. So, step by step, yes. Step by step. Exactly. So you first start with the first step, and that is your motherboard. I know you hear everybody say out there to everybody, always start with your processor because your processor dictates this and that. No. Your processor dictates absolutely nothing. The heart of your computer is your motherboard. Not your processor, not your graphics card, your motherboard. That is the heart of your system. That's what ties your graphics card in to your processor. That's what ties your RAM into your processor and your graphics card. That's what ties your storage into your processor, your graphics card, and your RAM. Now, with all that together, exactly, your motherboard will tell you. Your motherboard will dictate to you what you can do and not do. But if you go and buy just the processor and say, I'm jumping full feet in, but you're not getting the point. You're not starting where you need to start. You need to start learning what your motherboard is about. What's inside the BIOS. What kind of function is, what functions you have inside there. What does it do? Get to the basics. Always start with your motherboard and then find out how many different processors that motherboard can handle. Now, I can tell you, this motherboard here that I got will handle all the Zen 3 line, the whole Zen 3 line. Starting at the beginning of the Zen 3 all the way up to the end. This motherboard will handle it. In the same respect that the processor I got now. If I want the 5800X3D, it will handle it. I don't need to make any changes. Nothing. I need to change nothing. I leave the same settings, everything. Now, if I wanted the 3950X, it'll plug into it because my VRMs on this motherboard will handle it. If I want the 5950 to plug in here, the VRMs will handle it. The 5900, the 5800X, 5900X, 5800X, 5700X, 5600X, 5500X. If there is 5500X, there probably is. But the 5500, 5600G, the 5700G, there's a lot that your motherboard can handle. Okay? A lot. But you have to have the right motherboard to do that. Well, I always looked at it too. You can take a B550 motherboard that cost you about $130, right? You can get a B550 motherboard for about probably cheaper than you probably get it down to $100, and then you can take and get one of those 5600Gs the Ryzen 5600G, or you can get a Ryzen 7 5700G and plug that into that motherboard, and you need no graphics card. Simple as that. You need absolutely no graphics card. Just plug in 32 gigs of RAM. You know, I mean, if you want more speed from your integrated graphics, you just plug in faster RAM. That's it. That'll make your integrated graphics run faster. You can go into your BIOS for your for the motherboard when you go to what was it? In the integrated graphics, if you got 32 gigs of RAM, let's say you're running it at 3600 megahertz and you're running at CL16, okay? So when you go to plug that in on integrated graphics, that will make your integrated graphics run faster than you think. The higher the RAM goes, the higher the frequency goes, the more the frequency, the better and faster that processor is going to run. Okay, I've already tested mine at 3200 megahertz and 3600 megahertz. They are fun, yes. The discrete graphics card are fun, but try to have more fun in the fact of taking integrated graphics and blowing it up out of the water. Now, with a B550 motherboard, running it at 64 gigs of, let's say, 4,000 megahertz RAM, running it under CL18, if I remember right. See how fast your graphics are going to be then. Also, too, now look, when you go to adjust the amount of RAM, see, now the thing is, integrated graphics doesn't have what they call VRAM. Integrated graphics does not have what they call VRAM. It has what they call system RAM or shared RAM. So basically, you can, in the BIOS, you can set the integrated graphics, you can set it with dedicated memory. Okay, so you can dedicate the memory up to 16 gigabytes, if I remember right, with 64 gigs of system RAM in the computer. If you dedicate it, now this is a little trick, you dedicate it 16 gigabytes and you got 64 gigs, but the set that you have is running at 4,000 megahertz CL18, that thing would scream. That would scream. It would scream. Well, think about it. Think about the iGPU as a graphics card, as a discrete graphics card. Okay. Now, if you bought something like, just an example, the 4060 Ti was 16 gigabytes of RAM, right? 4060 Ti was 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now you go into your iGPU and you got the Ryzen 7 5700G, okay, and you go in and set into the BIOS, you set the clock speed at 23, or is it 24 or something like, it's either 24 or 2700 megahertz. You can set on the Ryzen 7 5700G. You can set the clock speed up to 18 or 1900 megahertz for the Infinity Fabric. So an iGPU that's running 16 gigabytes of dedicated RAM, not VRAM, dedicated RAM, you basically now you're using your iGPU as a discrete graphics card. Simple. When you max everything out on that in the BIOS for the integrated graphics, you basically got a full-blown out graphics card. You just saved, instead of spending $500, to where you spent $140 on a processor that has integrated graphics but gives you close to the speeds of a $500 discrete graphics card. Does that kind of make sense? So let's say you spend, let me do this real quick. Let's say the discrete graphics card's at $500, right? So you minus that from the processor you spent $149 for. So you save $351. Basically, you save $351 by just using integrated graphics. And guess what? The difference is that the amount of cores that's on integrated graphics is different from a discrete graphics card. Yes, true. But if you could still get a lot of great gameplay out of discrete graphics, then guess what? What are you missing? Nothing. That's one piece of hardware you don't have to put in your system, causing, guess what? What? Bottlenecks? Okay, now, with integrated graphics, the die, everything on the die, the chiplets that are so close together are within very little minuscules of seconds, milliseconds, compared to the discrete graphics card, which has to go up the channel. Okay, it has to go up that channel and then connect to your processor, then go through the RAM and everything else, and then come back down to the graphics card. That's with discrete graphics card. Now, with integrated graphics, it does it a little bit different. Everything's so close to the processor, it's instant. It is instant. Milliseconds. So this little thing that you see with the amount of seconds that, what you see right here is milliseconds going from the processor to the graphics card back to the processor. That's the delay. Yep, that's the bottleneck delay. But with integrated graphics, the bottleneck is almost gone. Setting your integrated graphics up carefully and correctly, there is no bottlenecking. It's just straight gameplay. There's no adjusting, nothing. You just plug and play. It's what they call plug and play. So, but with the graphics card, then you got all this you got to worry about. All this stuff that you see right here on this list, this is what you got to worry about. Okay, all this list right here, this is what you got to worry about. True. Not a lot of, understand, computers is not hard. What makes it hard is when you got other people telling you what if. Stop listening to the what if and just do it. Just put it together. The only thing that makes a computer so hard to put together, it's not so much the pieces, it's so much doing the research and know how to fix the operating system to the computer. That's it. There's nothing to a computer. It's put the pieces together like a puzzle, make sure they're the right pieces so they work together in harmony. Once you get it all together and it starts up, Then you go to the next step. You put the operating system in, and then you put all the driver software in. And then after that, put your programs in. After that, you're done. It's a couple steps, you're done. From A to Z, it doesn't take much. Yes, it takes a couple hours. I can tell you, and some people want to do water cooling, want to do, the whole 900 yards to their system. It's going to take days. Yes, that is true. It will take days. But if you want to do air cooling only, then it takes hours. I mean, it might take you it took me to build my system. If I didn't videotape my system, it would take me approximately 2 hours to put it together. 2 hours. So. Yes, true. Go big or go home. That's how you got to look at it. When you first build your first time system, and which is true, it's either you go big or you go home. And that's the whole purpose of that. Is because you don't want to get crappy hardware and then put, the operating system to it and then try to play your stuff, your games. And then you find out that the crappy hardware got you nowhere. They got you right to the bottom of the barrel, which is true. So you go by what you can afford, but if you save up to get the right parts for your system and you save up for it, just do it the right way. Just buy the right parts. Buy it, and if you can't afford the expensive parts, that's fine too. Buy, the happy medium parts. But if you buy the starter parts for your system, the problem with buying the starter parts is this, that it's a system that you put together for your youngest, your kids. It's not a parent kind of system. You want a system that's right down the middle. That's a happy medium. Okay, now I understand. I'm not on AM5's platform. There's a reason. Because the way the price is going, the AM5 right now, it's more high end. It's more high end than it is low end. Okay, you got one or two low end motherboards. That's not going to cut it with me. Okay, now in the AM4 series, all the prices are being reduced. So that means the parts that used to be so expensive are now going to become so cheap. And when they do those high expensive parts, those are the parts I'm going to be looking for. Is because those are the ones that are going cheap. Those are the parts that are going cheap. Okay? The ones that everybody did a lot of overclocking, did a lot of testing and everything else to find out if they were the best of the best of the best. Those are the parts that, if they go cheap, those are the parts you're going to want. Because they've already been tested, retested, tested, and retested. They've been tested so many times to see what the results are. You should know by hand with the AM4 series which is the best of the best of the best. And watch for the parts when they come down in price, which they will. Demand will go down on AM4 sooner or later. And when it goes down, the price of the parts go down for a limited time. And then when the demand goes up, they'll go back up in price. So just watch the fluctuation of the demand going down and going up. Okay. Now, another thing too that I noticed with me running live right now, I'm running AV1 encoding live because I got a 40 series graphics card. Good to know. Remember, don't smoke CBD or the other stuff when you go to Micro Center. You will get all bad. I'm going to be honest with you. I smoked normal cigarettes for 35 years, my friend. What made me quit was this right here. It's not CBD, and it's not nicotine. It's just regular old juice. It's basically got me off of a problem that was a bad problem. So now it corrected my problem. And now I'm working my way off of this. Since this has no nicotine, I work my way off of that, and then guess what? I'm cut free. Means I cut myself free after 35 years of all the packs of Marlboros and everything else that I've smoked. So, yeah. I don't smoke CBD. This is not CBD. This right here is not CBD. So, vaping's a little bit different. You know, vaping is a little bit different. See right here? See right here? It says 0 milligrams. Let me get that in there. It says 0 milligrams. This has absolutely no nicotine. Yeah, I smoked 35 years. So, I gave it up. Well, let's see. This is year number 3. So, by the time I hit year number 5, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. So that means I'm totally cut free. So, yeah. I already know about the vaping. And I already know that I need to make sure my window's cracked so that way it doesn't get into my PC. You're welcome. Hey, I take my time. I'm not the kind of, even though that I talk slow and everything else and people don't like the way I talk, it's like there's many more people out there that talk, too fast. They don't break it down enough. To me, in my opinion, they don't break things down enough. They don't go into detail enough. Showing me a bunch of numbers is not going to tell me how my PC is going to operate. It's not. So, I just want you to understand this. I went with the processor of the least that people don't review, that have the least amount of review, which the 5700X does not have that much reviews. Okay, does not. And there's a 5700 out there too that does not have many reviews. So, well, thank you, Caesar. I do appreciate it. I try to break things down to where, it's not like I'm gonna, like, I want to rip your head off, that kind of, no, I'm not doing that. Okay? I'm being me. I'm doing me, I'm being me, I'm having fun doing me. So why would I want to be like somebody else? Well, you think I want to follow different channels and everything else and be like them and do what they do and everything else? Then that would make my channel like their channel. So it would be like me copying their channel. I'm just being me. I'm doing me. And the way I test and everything else might be not of everybody's liking, but so what? I test my product That's here. You can test along if you want. If you want to try it, that's up to you. I mean, but I can tell you I get a better result in the kind of testing I do. I really do. So, but when it comes to, my problem is that I don't really like doing this. Let me pull this up. This is one thing I don't like doing a lot of. And I'd rather show you the testing and the results other than doing this. I'm gonna show you what I got cooking on this one. So, because it's to me it's like it's too fake of testing when you sit there and you tell everybody it's like this right here, this one right here. To me, this would be like me telling you all a fake story. Even though that this story is true, well, I'm just proving a point here. That's all I'm doing. I'm just proving a point. This is like me trying to tell you a fake story. I don't like doing that. Benchmarking doesn't tell the world, it doesn't show the world what you're doing to get these benchmarks. Okay? It doesn't show the world anything. That's why I started steering away from doing this. I'd rather do it live. I'd rather say, well, I'm benchmarking live. If you notice right here, it's still running. I am still actually running Heaven Benchmark as I'm talking to everybody. Is this not crazy? Look. Look at the temperature. It's still running. Am I bottlenecking? Hell no. I'm not bottlenecking nothing. It's just a point I'm proving. So, I just want everybody to feel like they're at home. I don't want anybody to feel like, you don't have to be here. I don't want people going around say, oh, I don't want to go to his channel. He a creepy old man kind of thing. I want everybody to feel like they're part of a family. I don't want you to feel any different. I'd rather have everybody feel like they're part of a family other than feel like they're, being treated like a stranger on the street. So that's the reason why, I tell everybody when I do my live streaming, make sure you subscribe so that way you can get the up to date on, when I do live streaming or everything else. So it's not hard. But now, if you noticed how long I've been running Heaven Benchmark was close to the amount of the time that I've been streaming. I would say it's about 2 hours and 37 minutes I've been running Heaven Benchmark while I'm streaming. Look at the temperature. 127 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you look over there on the GPU Z that I have over here, okay, if you look on GPU Z, you'll see that it says right here, where it says CPU temperature, show current reading. So it shows you the actual reading of the test. So it's still maintaining between 52C and 54C. Okay. And I'm still running Heaven Benchmark. See? It's still running right here. It's still running. Here, let me pull that down over there. There we go. So, that's my point. This test's been running for over 2+ hours. 2+ hours. And the temperature hasn't really gone up. It went up a little bit when I stressed it out, but it came back down again. So, like I said, the CPU running at 127 Fahrenheit. GPU running at 122 Fahrenheit. Now, if you really want to know what the difference between Fahrenheit and Celsius, go from F to C, and guess what happened? So I put F to C, and then you go over here in the Fahrenheit, and you put 126, and it shows you 52.22222 Celsius. Now, that's on the processor. Now, if you want to see what's on the GPU, it says 102. So it's showing 38.88889 Celsius. So that gives you the temperature for the GPU and the CPU in Celsius, if y'all didn't know. I do apologize for not doing that. I should have done that earlier so you can see the difference in Fahrenheit to Celsius. So now you know that, how it's running and how it's not running. So, but it's running pretty well in my books. I can't beat it. This is the kind of computer I've always wanted. Even though that it's a medium style computer, okay, it's beating the hell out of whatever I had before. It's beating the crap out of it. So I just wanted y'all to understand that. I'd expected to do a 3-hour stream today, just to let you know. So, that's the reason why I kept Heaven Benchmark going. So this way it keeps going through the cycles and everything else to see how well I balanced out the temperature amongst the voltage of the CPU. So now that I balanced the voltage and balanced the PBO curve, it's running smooth. And especially when I'm, live streaming and running Heaven Benchmark, it gives me a good idea. Especially if I'm testing or whatever else, it will run even better. So my next step now is I need to work on getting me a bench, to put motherboards and to put processors and stuff like that on, like a big bench, so that way, y'all can watch me benchmark new motherboards, and stuff like that for new computer systems. So that way you can see, and I'll get a capture card. That way I can plug the system in. You guys can watch right along with me benchmarking just like you do here, like I'm doing with Heaven Benchmark and doing a capture card. You'll see the same thing on a different system to this system, and that way you can see it live and you don't have to watch on a camera. That's one thing that drives me crazy, is watching other benchmarks being done on a camera other than being done on a capture card. I know it drives you all crazy too. So I stopped doing that. You know, just let you know that. And yes, it sounds like I'm getting long-winded, but, you know, I'm not trying to. And as you see, if you look right here, it's given the max CPU, not the max watts. Now understand this. This is not 65 or 80 watts. The max amount of watts I got off of this processor was about 82.3 watts total. That's not too bad. Now, the amount of RAM that the whole show's pulling at 49, not even at 5 not even 5 gigabytes of RAM, not even 5 gigabits of RAM. Oh, okay, well, go ahead and take the dog out. You got time. I'll be here for another 10-15 minutes. Hurry back. I'm just going to be here rambling on. Let's see. Now that y'all seen that, and fix my shirt, we got this one still rolling. Is it proving anything? Yeah, it is. Because I'm watching the numbers, you know, the fluctuation from going from 300 up to 500. Showing me at what percentage of the milliseconds is giving my highs and my lows. So you can calculate all that manually. You don't need a calculator for that, just to say. You can calculate your average over a time span. My time span would be the matter of 1 hour to calculate the highs and the lows on different frames. And this has got, what, 28 or 29 different frames? Calculate on each frames the high spots and the low spots. So, but I can tell you on an average, this is running at, on Heaven Benchmark, on an average, about 390, 400, in between there, on an average. So, on the high, it'll go up to about maybe 600 on the high, and on the low, it might go down to like 370. So that's not too bad. So that's how you gotta look at it too. On the high and the low and the average, you know, those are just my calculations. I'm not going by a program calculations. I'm going by what I can see, not what a program's doing. You know, it's what I can see that makes the difference. You know. A lot of people do that now these days. They don't watch the numbers to see how the highs and the lows and everything are going and calculate it. You know, I calculate it. You know, when I'm doing it like this, I just calculate it in my mind. Boom, it's done. Okay, so now, since I went to this test, I am going to do a different test. Since you all watched this, and this seemed to run just fine for the last couple hours, so I'm sure we're not going to be doing that all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and do something different. Okay, now I am going to pull up CPU-Z. Sorry about the flashing. I'm going to pull up CPU-Z, and I'm going to show you what the deal is with that. As soon as it comes up, I'll show you what the difference of that is. Okay, there's no, and when I change programs, you'll see that little flash. Okay, now right here, we'll move everything over again. Okay, now right here, CPU-Z. Now go to bench. That's where it starts. Hit bench CPU. Okay, now I got everything running. Everything running. Streaming and everything else. I'm looking for my numbers. I'm looking for my numbers. When this gets done and it goes right to this bench CPU, that means it's ready for you to say submit and compare. Okay, now submit and compare. What's going to come up next is what you want to see. Okay, what you want to see. So right here, we'll go ahead and move this over. Okay, so this tells me the instruction sets and everything else that I have. Tells me everything about my computer right there. But this is where it matters the most. This says 5, when it says you, that means your computer. And it says 5986. Click on it. So you get single thread and you get multi-thread. Okay, this shows where the beginning starts. Okay, now where it says you, okay, that's where that starts. With me running everything that I got going on my PC right now, it's running this equally at 628 with the stock settings. Equally with the stock settings. So, but it's still running it nice and toasty. So you get 628 with everything that I got running. Okay, now multi-thread, different score. So multi-thread, yeah, kind of the 57, the 5700X on multi-threading is really down in the dump. Okay, but my computer is not the only one that's down in the dump. This is happening worldwide. So this right here is test results from many worldwide. Just to let you know that. So mine's running a little bit below, but also too, remember I'm undervolting. That takes away from some of the speed of the processor to keep the temperature down. And I'm running a couple different programs like live streaming and I'm running all the background choices and everything else. So basically it is what it is. So with me running all that and everything else, yeah, it's not going to be as high as the X3D because that's where everybody gets their scores from. The multi-threading. They don't get theirs from the single thread. Now on single thread, this is not too bad. This computer is a monster. Even on multi-thread and single thread, it still does just as good as I expected it. Okay, but I got programs running in the background, and you know, it makes it run like, I mean, it is what it is. So, at least I know for a fact this computer will handle what I throw at it. And that's the whole idea. You want it to handle what you throw at it. Because when it comes to your games and everything else, you want everything that you throw at your computer to be game ready. You want it game ready when, you know, you throw everything at your computer. So you want yourself on a game ready level. So do remember that. You know, or you rather have a computer that you got to fight with every 5 seconds because the program screws up and everything else, you know, and you have a hard time, you know, using your computer because it's not working right and everything else. I've heard that so many times. I heard people so many times say, oh, my operating system's all messed up. Okay, well, think about this. One, when I went from the B450 motherboard to the B550 motherboard, I'm still using the same operating system. I have not changed the operating system from when my SSD drive was in the B450 motherboard, which I have that right here. Okay. Which I have that right here. The B450 motherboard. And when I get the new computer built, right here. That's that motherboard that cost $100 extra when you bought the 5600 X3D. This motherboard's $170 on Amazon. So I saved myself $70 from Amazon. Well, welcome back. Your dog's crazy. My dog's even crazier. That dog's sitting there right by my leg. Give me my food. Give me my food. It's like, yeah, crazy. I mean, if not, it'd be scratching the heck out of my leg. I know how it is. Trust me, I'm there. Trust me, I'm there already. Then my dog's already driving me up the wall. Dog bugs me every day. Where's my treat? I want my treat. And you're like, oh my God, did you even eat your food? Oh my God. Yeah, I know. My dog is nuts. You know, I do feel you. I understand 100%. Wow. And to let y'all know, we did 3 hours right here on JJ's PC Builds, believe it or not. But I'm going to have to take and cut the stream. I want to thank everybody that stuck around, that had a good time with me. And thank you, Caesar, for sticking around and having a great time. You know, even though that I know you're the only one that was in this chat, you know, why everybody else stayed outside, I guess. Didn't want to come in and see what I had to say. I guess they'll have to wait till next time when I do another live stream to come in and see what I have to say. But you know how that goes. Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. So, but And I'm going to say this since this is the ending. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. What I mean by 4,000 watch hours, watch the video from beginning to end. Would much appreciate, would help us get monetized and grow and everything else. Make sure if you like this video, put a positive like on it. Would help YouTube to tell YouTube that they need to get our videos out there more and more and more, so that way we can get more subscribers. That's where we're having a hard time right now, because YouTube does not want to put my videos out there to help us get more subscribers. So I'm asking the subscribers to go out there and say, hey, come on in and subscribe, you know. Like I'm doing it with everybody. So y'all ain't just the one. I'm on 3 different sites trying to get everybody over here to subscribe. I am trying. Trust me. It's just a little bit crazy, just to let you know. But anyway, until the next time and the next video, and thank you once again, all the new subscribers we did get. Welcome to the family. Welcome to JJPB Builds and my veteran subscribers. Thank you as always for your love and support and helping us with watching the videos, and you know how it goes. I wish I could, Caesar, but the thing is this. I got some things I got to get done today, so it's going to take me away from the PC. So I wish I could stay longer, but I really can't. But I have more videos coming up. Maybe next week I'll do another live stream. We'll see what happens. But until the next time in the next video, you know what it is. And we will see you